Israel is back at war on 3 fronts: in Gaza, in Lebanon, and with the Houthi rebels in Yemen. Hi, this is Joel Rosenberg. I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I want to talk about how bad this situation has gotten. The ceasefire has exploded. It's over, certainly in Gaza, but we're getting attacked in Israel from all 3 sides. I go home in a few days, but I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico right now. I'm actually in the office of Pastor Skip Heitzig. Skip Heitzig is one of the main allies of the Joshua Fund, of All Israel News, of All Arab News, and a big fan of the Rosenberg Report. And I was here to brief his congregation on what exactly is happening. And I want to share some of the things that I shared with them with you here on a YouTube exclusive for the Rosenberg Report. Look, over the last week or so, we hit an inflection point where the Trump administration and President Trump's chief special envoy to the Middle East is a guy named Steve Witkoff. Steve has been trying to extend Israel's ceasefire with Hamas so that Hamas would release all of the 59 hostages still being held in Gaza. Now, about 24 or 25 of those hostages we believe are still alive. Israeli intelligence is telling us about 24 of those hostages that are in Gaza are alive. We want all of them back. We want them immediately, and we want them unharmed. But there are also 35 bodies of dead Israeli hostages still in Gaza. We want their bodies back because we want to bury them properly. The problem is, twice, not just once, but twice, Hamas has completely rejected the Trump administration's efforts to extend the ceasefire. Steve Witkoff was offering, why don't we extend the ceasefire past Ramadan, which is the high holy month for Muslims, which is going on right now. Let's extend it even past Passover and Easter, which is in the middle of April. Things can still remain quiet, and then Hamas will let all the 24 live hostages come out and the 35 dead bodies to come out as well. Hamas said absolutely not. They refused twice to accept this offer. And that's why Prime Minister Netanyahu went back to war in Gaza with massive airstrikes, but also with ground forces moving deeper and deeper into Gaza. Now, many Israelis are mad at Netanyahu too. Obviously, the hostage families, anyone who's a hostage still in Gaza, whether it's the 24 live hostages especially, but the 36 dead bodies, any of those families and friends, you would expect, and with sympathy, with empathy, we have to understand they don't want Israel to go back to war in Gaza because that could lead to the murder of all of the live hostages. That is a huge risk. But what's the alternative? Israel can't be in a position where Hamas is just sitting there. We know from the testimony of Israeli hostages that have been released, Hamas is continuing to dig tunnels. They're continuing to rebuild their forces. They're continuing to recruit more Hamas terrorists. And there are estimates that now their ranks have now swelled to about 25 or 30,000. So Israel's government, the cabinet, decided under Prime Minister Netanyahu, we cannot just let Hamas and PIJ, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, just sit there and have all the time and freedom and safety in the world to keep holding our hostages. They're not negotiating. They're not letting them out. No, we're not going to allow that to happen. And President Trump, of course, had given a full green light to Prime Minister Netanyahu to use force. Netanyahu didn't use it immediately. He pocketed that green light, as it were, that card, and he continued to work with Steve Witkoff to get out every hostage that Hamas had promised in the first phase of the negotiated deal. And that's why we're back at war. Now, at the same time, war in Gaza has unleashed missiles coming from Lebanon, from Hezbollah. Israel has struck back, but there's a real possibility that the ceasefire with Hezbollah in Lebanon, that could unravel. We don't know what they've been doing underground. We don't know how they're getting ready for another onslaught, but we have to be on high alert, and Israel is. At the same time, Iran is directing the Houthi terrorists in Yemen to fire ballistic missiles at Israel, usually in the middle of the night. Fortunately, all those missiles so far have been shot down and haven't killed anybody. But Israel's under rocket and missile attack from 3 different directions, and this war is back on. And this is very, very serious. So we need to be praying for Israel to have wisdom, the Israeli leaders to know how to navigate. But But I want to say again, there are many Israelis who are angry at Netanyahu, who think he's making a mistake. Not just hostage families, but those who are sympathetic to those hostage families, although every Israeli is sympathetic to the hostage families. But the question is, what's the alternative? If we don't go back to war now and put military pressure on Hamas, what's the alternative? I have not heard a single person, a critic of Netanyahu, suggest a better way forward at this stage. So that's a real issue. But it really comes down to, in many ways, do you trust or mostly trust Netanyahu to fight for Israel's national interests and to defeat Hamas entirely and to do everything he can to get the hostages out if they can be gotten out? If those Israelis who trust Netanyahu or partially trust Netanyahu think this is the right decision. And so the political division is deep. I will tell you from my perspective, I think Netanyahu and his team are doing the right thing. I don't want it to be the case, but I don't see another way than intense military pressure, that if Hamas could be brought back to the table, if they would be willing to give out even some of the hostages, certainly all of the hostages, I don't see how it's going to happen without military pressure. Hamas has never given hostages back out unless they were under intense military pressure. And every time the international community or many Israelis tell Netanyahu, stop, don't put military pressure on Hamas, Hamas feels emboldened. Every time the international community is pressuring Israel to accept a permanent ceasefire, i.e. surrender, Hamas is emboldened, and they hold on to those hostages and they terrorize them and they torture them even more. I think it was a brilliant move that Netanyahu caught Hamas completely off guard by launching new air attacks and a ground incursion when Hamas thought they maybe had until the end of Ramadan, the end of Passover. But that wasn't negotiated, that wasn't agreed upon, and so Netanyahu decided to strike them when they least expected it. I think that was the right move, but I am sympathetic to and I feel for all the families that are terrified that a new Israeli offensive is going to lead to the murder of all of the live hostages and that we would never get them back, we would never get the bodies back. I do feel sympathetic. I just don't see another way. So I just wanted to give you a sense of where we are right now. There is one other critical issue, and that is Iran. I'm going to talk about that in a different YouTube exclusive, but just so that you know, President Trump has sent to the Iranian leadership a letter giving them 2 months to come to negotiate a deal, some sort of deal with President Trump, or else. What does that mean? I'll share with you more on the next YouTube exclusive. From Albuquerque, New Mexico, from the office of Pastor Skip Heitzig, where I preached this weekend and briefed his congregation, who so loves Israel and so loves the neighbors and is so strongly supportive of the Joshua Fund and All Israel News and the Rosenberg Report. From his office here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, this is Joel Rosenberg. Keep praying. God bless you.